I'm reminded that the question that keeps being asked around the world that has to do with prisons here in the United States is this simple question. Why do the United States imprison so many more people as a percentage of its population than almost any other country in the world? And she gave us the answer, because it's not about criminality. It's about controlling a part of the population. You pretend that they are criminals so you can put them in under the heading of criminal. But if you're trying to solve a social problem by putting people away out of the community in an enclosed space, and you can call it criminal, then you get the weird statistic that your numbers are off the chart relative to everybody else. And I have to tell you, because in large part the people in most other countries do not allow such a thing to happen. And as Americans, you ought to ask yourself, as I do, what is it about our country that allows such a thing to happen and to be perpetuated and to produce? You all know, and I don't want to digress, it costs much more per year to put a person in jail than to give them a decent job and an income. It is outrageously inefficient to do this. We may have a Department of Governmental Efficiency, but it didn't do anything about one of the grossest inefficiencies that this government has ever perpetrated on people. And if you can see the fakery of calling it all drug-related, it's the same thing. The story I told some of you before we went on the official program about those 76 people that have been executed by the United States because they were on a narco boat in the Caribbean or the Pacific over the last 3 months. Those are also being called criminals, being involved in the drug trade. That's what put all those people in jail, being involved in the drug trade. I went to school in the fanciest schools this country has. I was an undergraduate at Harvard, then I got a master's degree at Stanford, and I finished by getting 2 more masters and a PhD at Yale. I'm like a joke. And here's what I want to tell you. Every drug you ever heard of was always available in every room of those institutions that I ever visited. And who got arrested? Nobody. Who got invaded by the cops? Never happened. Which person of the young people there was worried that their drug activity would get them into trouble? None of them. This is a social issue, not a chemical issue. Okay, I want to talk to you about this problem of affordability. It's a big, long, fancy word. Don't be misled by it. It simply means what you suspect it means. We got a problem in that a lot of the things we need and want, we can't afford to get. Nor if we get one of them, we have to forego another one of them. It's been around a very long time. Not a new problem, not at all. But for a long time in the United States, roughly the last century until recently, mechanisms were found in the United States to give a large number of people an escape hatch, to give them a little extra money so that they could afford many things, more than their parents had been able to afford, and that was a sign that was important. For 100 years. The period is known historically, and it will be looked back on in the years ahead, as the period of the American Empire, when the United States became a global power. That was not always true. for most of the history of this country was not true. Remember how it began? I don't mean began with the people, the indigenous folks over here. We all know the genocide that removed them. Now, if I look at the Europeans who come, they were poor in most cases. They were criminals back home, running away. People in awkward circumstances, the phrase is in German. And they came here, and they had a fairly hard-scrabble life. They were given land that had been taken away from the indigenous people and so forth. You know the story. But it was only really World War II. So, now a lot of American history from the time of the Independence War of 1776 to World War II, 1942, that's a long time. We were not an empire then. We had been a colony of somebody else's empire, remember? The British, they had a big empire too. What's left of that? Nothing. You know what England is now? A poor, wet, cold island off of the mainland of Europe. That's what it is. It's one of the few countries of the Western world that's in worse shape than we are. Much worse. It is really serious what has happened to the empire once referred to as the sun never sets on the British Empire. Why? Because Britain has so many properties in Asia, Africa, Latin America, that literally as the sun goes around, as we go around the sun, there's always sunlight somewhere on what Britain owns. Now it's almost correct to say that the sun never shines on Britain. That's how far it's come. And before you laugh too much, that's what's happening to us. Now, you are living through it. I am living through it. I'm going to go through some details, but I don't want you to lose the big picture that I'll come back to at the end. The big picture is the empire is over. From 1945 to 2010, 2015, we were the top dog. All the other big, powerful capitalist countries and the socialist countries had blown themselves to bits in World War II. Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Russia, China, boom. They destroyed one another, led by the old European empires. Hitler's slogan, Das Dritte Reich in German. My mother was born in Berlin. My first language is German. So I speak that language, still do. Hitler promised Das Dritte Reich means the Third Empire. He was going to make Germany an empire again. A kind of MAGA forerunner in more ways than one. And to do that, he invaded the Soviet Union. And that begins World War II. And they destroyed each other. The British, the French, the Germans, the Italians. They still haven't recovered. Immediately at the end of the war, the colonial people around the world realized, this is our chance. They're weak. They destroyed each other. We can get independence. Led by India, the big jewel of the British Empire, they fought the battle. You all have heard or watched or learned about Mahatma Gandhi and that movement. That was a revolution against the British Empire. And the British did everything, every ugly, violent, destructive thing you can imagine, and many that you don't imagine, to your credit, including dividing South Asia between Hindu and Muslim and all the horror that goes on about that to this day. As horrible and in some ways worse than what Israel is doing in Gaza. which is a rerun of these situations. The United States took over. As Britain withdrew, the United States moved in everywhere. And we were the king. You were born into that. You've lived your life in that. What you now have to come to terms with is that was a special period and it's done. And it's not coming back. You're going to live the rest of your life, whether you like it or not, in the decline of the American empire. And one of the results, I invite you to come to other talks. I'll be glad to go into many other aspects because it's shaping everything about your life. Your music, your dance, your diet, your dress, your education, your medical care, you name it. They are all being reorganized. It's not Mr. Trump who's doing that. It's the situation. That's why it was already underway before he became president, and it will continue long after he isn't president anymore. And I'm not here to defend or attack him. I'm not interested in that. And beware lest you be too caught up in the details of what he's doing to miss the picture of what's going on here. As the empire declines, and let me give you milestones so you can get it. The United States went to war in Vietnam. The enemy was the Communist Party of North Vietnam. The United States lost the war. You know who runs Vietnam today? The Communist Party of North Vietnam, because they won. You know who doesn't run Vietnam? The United States. You know why? Because it lost. I have to underscore this to Americans who live in an environment in which they don't seem to get it.